Hello, this is Mike. I'm an alcoholic. I just want to make a video on the book Alcoholics Anonymous and a power greater than yourself. There's many terms or words used for a power greater than yourself in the book Alcoholics Anonymous. Higher power, great reality, Father of light, Heavenly Father, God, etc. My higher power, who I pray to and meditate to, is the Creator. It's pretty simple for me. The Creator created me. There is literally no religious baggage there. It's not a religion for me. It's a spiritual relationship. The Creator and me. That's it. There's no middleman that you'll find in religion. Now, as far as I'm concerned, if you practice religion and that's your faith, that's great, but it's not for me. In religion, I call it a middleman between God, or not God, the Creator, and me. The middleman could be a priest, rabbi, preacher, etc. Different forms representing God. Even the Catholic religion has a pope who declares he's the God that represents power greater than ourselves. It can go on and on and on. And I found that religion can be weaponized. And so I don't practice a religion. I was raised Catholic as a child. I remember going to St. Matthew's Church, and I had fifth grade. I went up to fifth grade. I went to private Catholic school to fifth grade. And I was taught by nuns. I was taught Latin. I went to church every morning. I had catechism on Saturday. I had Sunday Mass in the 60s where they had incense and talking in Latin, the communion, the confession, all that. And I quit practicing being Catholic in junior high. Today I'm 69 years old. I was born in 1956. So today it's spiritual, meaning that I pray and meditate to the Creator. The Creator created me. And I literally do not go to any kind of mass or any kind of building or anything on Sunday to go to church, any of that. I don't do any of that. I literally get up in the morning. I turn my will over to the care of the Creator as I understand Him. I do a prayer list. I pray for other people. I pray for joy, love, and peace. And I do a gratitude list. I write down things that I'm grateful for and what I appreciate. And that kills self-pity. You cannot feel sorry for yourself if you're grateful. And then I do a 10-minute quiet time or meditation in the morning when I wake up. So I get quiet and I just simply sit and listen. Remember the relationship of talking and listening. When you pray, you're talking, and when you're meditating, you're listening. That's the components of a relationship. Now, if I'm just praying, talking, that's only half of the relationship. So it's not a real relationship. So the point is, I do a 10-minute quiet time every time I get up in the morning. And I write down my thoughts. And after the 10 minutes is over, I apply the 4 principles of honesty, purity, unselfishness, and love. Honesty, purity, unselfishness, and love. If it passes, the written meditation passes all 4 principles, it must pass all 4, that I consider inspiration or guidance or intuitive thought from my Creator. If it has dishonesty, resentment, fear, or selfishness, it's a fail. Any one of those liabilities of selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear, it's a fail. And that's what I do every morning when I get up. That's what I consider formal meditation, something I do every morning when I get up. Now, informal meditation is when I can literally do it anywhere, any place, anytime. I can pause and get quiet and listen, say a prayer and listen. In this video, though, I want to break down how the book Alcoholics Anonymous talks about a higher power. They use many words. They like to use the word God. They say power. They say creator. They say maker. They say great reality. Bill Wilson, in his story, Bill's story, he uses Father of Light. Now, in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, in Bill's story, Ebby T approaches Bill Wilson, co-founder of AA, co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, and says, why don't you choose your own conception of God? And it says in the book, he says, that melted the intellectual mountain that I had shivered under. And to me, if you look in the book and you read that, it's like intellectual mountain. My interpretation of that is his God or his higher power was his brain power, his self-will. He was the smartest guy in the room, right? And he found that he could not survive alcoholism with the intellectual brain. He was too smart, right? And so when you read that, when Ebby T says, why don't you choose your own conception of God? And he says, wow, that really melted the intellectual mountain that I stood and shivered under. And it really, to me, means that his brain power or his intellectual power was what was running the show, his best thinking, so to speak. But I'm really going to focus in on some of the wording, especially the word God. A lot of people were forced to go to religion when they were children, and they had bad experiences. Like, certain religions say, hey, you're already in hell, and put you in a guilt trip. You're already in hell, and you got to dig yourself out, and you're never worthy, and all that. It's a real mess. Okay, and so the word God, I'm going to break down, and you'll be surprised what that word actually means if you look into it. Now, the beauty of Alcoholics Anonymous is when Ebby T said to Bill, why don't you choose your own conception of God? You can reword that and say, why don't you choose your own conception of a power greater than yourself? And you can get away from the word God, because God is a loaded word. There's a lot of a lot of religious baggage there with the word God. It's used in religion. The word God is used in religion. And then you've heard, in the Bible, the Lord's Prayer. And the word Lord is a loaded word too. So I'm going to break all that down and keep it super simple to where the Creator created me, and it's a power greater than myself. And here's a quote right at the beginning of the video. It's in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, in Appendix 2, Spiritual Experience, pages 567 and 568. Now, this is right in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, and this is what it says. Most of us think this awareness of a power greater than ourselves is the essence of a spiritual experience. Now, I'm here to tell you, in my opinion, in my experience, that awareness is the power greater than ourselves. That's what we are. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, and we are awareness. It isn't something in form, it's awareness. And I can prove it. When I meditate, I get quiet, and your mind is always thinking, right? You always have your mind popping in thoughts, random things, So I get quiet, and I have silence, and it's perfectly still, perfectly quiet. There is no thoughts. There's a gap there between thoughts. And that's awareness. That's who you are. You're a mortal being that'll never go away. Your awareness itself. That's your spiritual experience. But here comes your mind, or your brain, or however you want to put it, you're thinking, and you come up with some random stuff. It's like mow the grass, go to the grocery store, all that. But the point I want to make is that there's a gap. There's a gap between thoughts. And sometimes it's pretty short. Sometimes it could go for maybe 20 seconds, 30 seconds. And that's pure awareness. That's who you are. In step 12, they talk about having a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. And what the steps are designed to do is remove the blocks of selfishness, dishonesty, and fear, to where you can have that awareness. You're not driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, and all that, as described in the book Anonymous. So here it says, most of us think this awareness of a power greater than ourselves is the essence of a spiritual experience. So a spiritual experience is something that you've experienced it. It's not something you believe. Okay? Like the example of, I need to get my car repaired. Well, I don't know a good mechanic that won't, somebody won't rip me off. I go to the garage and they'll rip me off or do a bad job. So I don't know any good mechanics. So I go to a friend or somebody that I trust, and I say, hey, do you know a good mechanic that can fix my car? And he goes, yeah, I know a good mechanic. Go down the street right here. This garage, Atlas 123, does a great job, and they're very reasonable, and they're excellent. And so that's a recommendation I get from a friend to go get my car repaired. So I believe him. I don't know yet, but I believe him. I trust him to where he can point me in the right direction, so I actually believe that I can get my car repaired. I don't know yet. That's the point. So I go to the garage. Sure enough, he does the repair, and it's fixed. Now I know that he's a good mechanic. But the premise was that I go on belief. Here it says the essence of a spiritual experience. So I experience it. I know. So awareness is you. That's who you are. And it talks about that on page 55. And they call it the great reality. And it says you can find it by searching fearlessly, and it's deep down inside you. So I just wanted to kind of break down this power that's going to save your life, and you don't have to drink yourself to death from alcoholism.
Satan's true name is God. We are not supposed to be calling upon the name God, and I'm going to show you. So I'm reading from the book of Enoch, which was removed from our Bibles. This is referring to a type of angels and their names. And the third was named Gadriel, or shortened would be God. He it is who shown the children of men all the blows of death, and he led astray Eve, So this is literally talking about Satan, the one who led astray Eve, right, in the garden. His true name is Gadriel, which shortened would be God. Now, if you go on Google and you type in God definition, you'll see this little name pop up next to it, G-A-D, God. The same way it's pronounced in Enoch, with that little vowel point above the A. Now look at this. Baal God means Lord of Fortune. Why do you think on the back of our money it says, "In God we trust"? It's not talking about the Most High of the Bible. This is a reference to Satan, the evil one. Now check this out. Every time you see Baal in the scriptures, it actually is just the Hebrew word for Lord. So we're not supposed to be calling him Lord either. All right, go into the Blue Letter Bible, click on Baal, and you will see it literally means Lord, which is the name they planted over the name Yahuwah 7,000 times in the scriptures. Every time you see in all caps the Lord, it was originally his name, Yahuwah. If you don't believe me, go fact check me. I have studied to show myself approved, and I'm just revealing to you guys what I have found. Don't shoot the messenger. Now remember what I said, we're not supposed to be calling him Lord because it actually means Baal. Go to Jeremiah 23 verse 27, whose true name is Yirmiyahu, who attempt to cause my people to forget my name for Baal, or Lord. Remember guys, Satan is literally the father of lies.
Wow. That blows my mind. The word God is Gadriel. And I believe it. I believe it, and it's like, okay, well, that's religion. That's the history of that word. And I am not going to use that word, me personally. But the point is, I wanted to illustrate the word God and the word Lord and, the Lord's Prayer, all that. That is a loaded term, a loaded word. There's a lot of baggage in there. And as far as I'm concerned, the word creator is bulletproof. He created me. It's definitely, I was created. There's no denying. Just look at your own body. Look at your eye. You think this just happened by random evolution? Really? It's pretty ridiculous to think that, in my opinion. So we are obviously created. And like I said earlier, our true essence is awareness. That's who we really are. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. So awareness is something that is who you are, awareness itself. And obviously there was a creator. I didn't create myself. I was created. And I definitely do not get entangled with the Bible or any kind of religious text. I'm concerned about the word higher power or power greater than myself. And I use the word creator. I believe I'm on safe ground and it's bulletproof. No religion can claim it and say, well, the creator and had all this backstory and, all this stuff that you have to sign on to. And it's like, nope, not subscribing to that at all. It's a personal relationship, the creator and me, and there is no middleman. So in this caption, it says, bondage of self. This is a quote I heard from Bob D. when I was listening to his AA speakers, and I really like it. It says, there's only one thing that I ever have to be free from, and that's the bondage of self. I drank for it, and I do AA for it. So the bondage of self is in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's defined by the words selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. That's your human experience, right? Your personality, your ego. And what I want to do is emphasize the 4 spiritual principles of honesty, purity, unselfishness, and love. So in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, when you come across the word God, you have the option to replace that with the word power, creator, great reality. I think those words are spiritual words that cannot be dragged down into the religious mud and then get beat over the head with it or weaponized. That's just me. That's just how I look at it. But in the 12 steps of AA, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, it says that I admit I am powerless over alcohol, that my life is unmanageable, meaning that I have a physical craving for alcohol once I put it in my body, and I just want to drink and drink and drink, and I cannot safely drink alcohol. That certainly will make my life unmanageable. But once you get past 72 hours and it's out of your system, it's out of your body, you still have to deal with your mind. And they talk about the bedevilments. And if you look at it, I think it's on page 52 or something in the book, the big book, or, it's nicknamed the big book. Anyway, the point is, I am trying to live on spiritual principles of honesty, purity, unselfishness, and love. Those are the four big ones, versus falling back into the bondage of self, which is selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. That's the battle. It's a daily reprieve based on a spiritual condition. If I'm living in the principles, praying, meditating, have a relationship, and that will help me stay sober. I will have a daily reprieve based on a spiritual condition. So we had to quit playing God, page 62. And there's the word God again. And you can scratch that and just say, I had to quit playing the creator. I am not the creator. I am not the source of everything. When I first heard that or first read that, first of all, I had to quit playing God. I thought of page 62 where they described the actor who wants to be the director. He wants to arrange everything and control everybody. I looked at it as a control freak, and it's like, well, I don't think God's a control freak. I just really revised that. It's like, when I heard that playing God, it's like, well, he's a control freak. Well, no, I don't think God is. Again, I get caught up with the word God. I don't think the creator is a control freak. I think the creator is the source of everything. And I think it's on page 62 in the big book, the book Alcoholics Anonymous, which says, our problem is we're selfish and self-centered. Our problem is that I'm selfish and self-centered. I am the source of everything, not the creator. That's the problem. And my dad, it was a running joke with my dad. It's like, everything revolved around him, selfish and self-centered. And I'm just like him. If it's not in my orbit, I don't even consider it. It's all I see is me. I'm the source of everything. And so I work with guys. I said, hey, don't catch a resentment if somebody does something to you. They're selfish and self-centered. That's all they see on their radar. They don't even see you. So don't take it personal, but sometimes the struggle is real. The point is, the quote, first of all, it starts out, first of all, meaning that's number one. I had to quit playing God. I had to quit playing I am the source of everything. The creator is the source of everything. And there's a quote in the big book, in reference to step 2, it says, we had to make a choice. Either God is or he isn't. Is he everything or is he nothing? What's our choice to be? And again, the word God, you can replace that with creator and just say, is the creator everything or is he nothing? What is our choice to be? And the creator is everything. He's a source of everything. So that's in step 2, in reference to taking step 2. and saying, yes, God is, I'm sorry, there I get caught up. Creator is everything. And the other question in step 2 is, do you believe or even willing to believe in a power greater than yourself? And that's a yes. So officially you've taken step 2 in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous by acknowledging that there's a power greater than yourself, and you believe or are willing to believe. Like I said earlier in that example about the recommendation going to mechanic, I asked a friend, hey, I trust you. Do you have a good mechanic? And yeah, here you go. Atlas 123. Sure enough, I go and I believe him. So in step 2, somebody in Alcoholics Anonymous who is sober and working a 12-step program and not drinking alcohol has been restored to sanity because they're not picking up the first drink and triggering the phenomenon of craving. I'm willing to believe that he believes in a higher power. And that's all you need to take step 2. That's a yes. I'm willing to believe that you believe. Or you believe straight out. I believe there's a power greater than myself. And that's a yes. So the point is, it talks about alcohol in step 1. It says, and then step 3, there's a prayer. They call it a prayer. It says, relieve me of the bondage of self. It doesn't, it says, here's the prayer. God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thy will. Relieve me of the bondage of self so I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness those I would help. With thy power, thy love, and thy way of life, may I do thy will always. So I would put Creator, I offer myself to thee, and I know that I am pure awareness because I experienced that. I know. So the point is, when it says bondage of self, it doesn't say bondage of alcohol, right? It doesn't say bondage of alcohol. It says bondage of self. And it's described in steps 4, step 10, and in step 11 as continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. That is the bondage of self. That is self-will, personality, ego. My job is to practice spiritual principles, the 4 absolutes of honesty, purity, unselfishness, and love. And you hear the word absolute, it's like, well, it's 100% or it's nothing. Absolute is something that is a principle. It's something that doesn't change. And I want to grow along spiritual lines. We claim spiritual progress, not spiritual perfection. The absolutes or the principles are perfection. And it's like, that is what I am trying to do, grow along spiritual lines. And you got to remember, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, so I'm going to have human emotions, human everything. And it's going to be, it sometimes could be a train wreck, but basically, I do the best I can, and I have the willingness to try. That's humility, is to have the humility to recognize when I'm wrong and to have the willingness to make it right. The opposite would be pride, where it's like, I'm never wrong and I'm not going to fix anything. And so humility is important if you want to get sober and stay sober. The willingness to be humble, or humility, is to say, I recognize that I'm wrong and I will make it right. That's what the steps are, especially in 8 and 9, making amends. Step 10 says continue to watch for mistakes, and when wrong, promptly admit it. There's humility. So humility is a very good quality to have if you want to get sober and stay sober. But I just want to round it out with the word God. what you saw in that little video really kind of, shook me up a little bit. It's like, wow, that's a loaded religious term, and I don't need to use that. AA gives me the option or the availability of saying, hey, I want to choose my own conception of the Creator as I understand Him. And I don't understand the Creator. I am not God. I'm not the Creator. I'm so intertwined with that word God. I don't use it anymore. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are the essentials of recovery, but these are indispensable. The definition for the word indispensable is absolutely necessary.
That's what it takes to see the truth. It says in an ancient text that pride blinds us from seeing the truth. And pride is simply the unwillingness to be wrong. And humility is the willingness to be wrong. And being wrong is great because I'm not walking around in error and I'm learning something new.
My friend promised when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator, that I would have the elements of a way of living which answered all my problems. Belief in the power of God, plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things were the essential requirements.
My friend suggested what then seemed a novel idea. He said, "Why don't you choose your own conception of God?" That statement hit me hard. It melted the icy intellectual mountain in whose shadow I had lived and shivered many years. I stood in the sunlight at last. It was only a matter of being willing to believe in a power greater than myself. Nothing more was required of me to make my beginning. I saw that growth could start from that point. Upon a foundation of complete willingness I might build what I saw in my friend. Would I have it? Of course I would. Actually, we were fooling ourselves, for deep down in every man, woman, and child, is the fundamental idea of God. It may be obscured by calamity, by pomp, by worship of other things, but in some form or other it is there. For faith in a power greater than ourselves, and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives, are facts as old as man himself. We finally saw that faith in some kind of God was a part of our make-up, just as much as the feeling we have for a friend. Sometimes we had to search fearlessly, but he was there. He was as much a fact as we were. We found the great reality deep down within us. In the last analysis it is only there that he may be found. It was so with us.
So in step 3 in Alcoholics Anonymous, I make a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand Him. My will is my thinking, and my life is my actions. So I decide to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand Him. Today, my higher power is the Creator. He created me. It's that simple. There's no religious baggage there. That's who I pray to, and that's who I meditate. I listen and I pray. That's a relationship by default, by definition. Creator, I offer myself to Thee to build with me and to do with me as Thy will. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do Thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help with Thy power, Thy love, and Thy way of life. May I do Thy will always.
Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that, while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontented unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks which they see others taking with impunity. After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over. They cannot start drinking without developing the phenomenon of craving. This phenomenon, as we have suggested, may be the manifestation of an allergy which differentiates these people and sets them apart as a distinct entity. It has never been, by any treatment with which we are familiar, permanently eradicated. The only relief we have to suggest is entire abstinence. But among physicians, the general opinion seems to be that most chronic alcoholics are doomed. What is the solution? They believe in themselves, and still more in the power which pulls chronic alcoholics back from the gates of death. Of course, an alcoholic ought to be freed from his physical craving for liquor, and this often requires a definite hospital procedure before psychological measures can be of maximum benefit. We believe, and so suggested a few years ago, that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy, that the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all, and once having formed the habit and found they cannot break it, once having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon things human, their problems pile up on them and become astonishingly difficult to solve. Frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. The message which can interest and hold these alcoholic people must have depth and weight. In nearly all cases, their ideals must be grounded in a power greater than themselves if they are to recreate their lives. And unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. On the other hand, and strange as this may seem to those who do not understand, once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol, the only effort necessary being that required to follow a few simple rules. One feels that something more than human power is needed to produce the essential psychic change.
Most of us think this awareness of a power greater than ourselves is the essence of a spiritual experience.
Through practicing meditation, what happens is you begin to discover your true nature. By moving attention from the thinking activity to watching the body breathing, if you start to experience the absence of thinking, you will begin to experience your true nature. If you start to experience the absence of thinking, you will begin to experience your true nature, and you will discover that your true nature is awareness itself, not the thinker. The thinker is the voice in your head, and that thinker that's the voice in your head is the voice of your mind. It's the voice of conditioning. It judges and evaluates everything. It's what gets upset.
Most of us think this awareness of a power greater than ourselves is the essence of a spiritual experience.
Through practicing meditation, what happens is you begin to discover your true nature. By moving attention from the thinking activity to watching the body breathing, if you start to experience the absence of thinking, you will begin to experience your true nature. If you start to experience the absence of thinking, you will begin to experience your true nature, and you will discover that your true nature is awareness itself, not the thinker. The thinker is the voice in your head, and that thinker that's the voice in your head is the voice of your mind. It's the voice of conditioning. It judges and evaluates everything. It's what gets upset.
Go into the silence. Go and sit down quietly by yourself for 30 to 60 minutes. 30 to 60 minutes. Most people in our society have never sat quietly for 30 to 60 minutes in their entire lives. Yet I will tell you this method works 100% of the time. That any problem that you have, any difficulty, any challenge, any goal that you want to accomplish, if you'll go into the silence and sit quietly and then listen to the still small voice within. The still small voice within. This is the key. You will find that at a certain point, probably at about 25 to 30 minutes, your mind will go completely clear, and then a flow of ideas will start to flow into your mind. You'll feel energy welling up inside you, and at a precise moment as you sit there in complete silence, the mind will go clear, and wham! Exactly the answer you need will come at exactly the right time. Go into the silence. Go and sit down quietly by yourself for 30 to 60 minutes. 30 to 60 minutes. Most people in our society have never sat quietly for 30 to 60 minutes in their entire lives. Yet I will tell you this method works 100% of the time. That any problem that you have, any difficulty, any challenge, any goal that you want to accomplish, if you'll go into the silence and sit quietly and then listen to the still small voice within. The still small voice within. This is the key. You will find that at a certain point, probably at about 25 to 30 minutes, your mind will go completely clear, and then a flow of ideas will start to flow into your mind. You'll feel energy welling up inside you, and at a precise moment as you sit there in complete silence, the mind will go clear, and wham! Exactly the answer you need will come at exactly the right time.
We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. One, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Six, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed, and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Step 1. I admit that I am powerless over alcohol, that my life has become unmanageable. I am powerless over alcohol. Once I put it in my body, I physically crave it. That, by definition, is an alcoholic. And that my life has become unmanageable, so I'm not going to be the manager anymore. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. Restored to sanity for an alcoholic is not picking up the first drink. So I believe in a power greater than myself. I start out believing, then later on I experience it. Step 3, made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of the Creator as I understand Him. My will is my thinking, and my life is my actions. I'm asking the Creator to take care of me as I understand Him. So by default, I have to have a relationship, a talking and listening, a prayer and meditation. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of myself. In the book Alcoholics Anonymous, the inventory is resentment, fear, and selfishness. A resentment is when I become angry at you and then I get up the next morning and remember it and replay it in my head and I become angry again. I get spiritually sick. Ego is in full bloom. Step 5, admit to the Creator, to myself, and to another human being the exact nature of my wrongs. Well, the 4 liabilities of selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear, everything springs from that. The exact nature of my wrongs, I was selfish, dishonest, resentful, and fearful, and I act on those motives. Step 6, I was entirely ready to have the Creator remove all these defects of character. Again, the 4 liabilities of selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Those are the 4 big ones. I'm asking God to take that out of my life by practicing spiritual principles. Step 7, Humbly ask the Creator to remove my shortcomings. There's humbly, there's that humility, willing to be wrong and set right the wrong. I ask, that's a prayer, I ask the Creator to remove my shortcomings. Step 8, made a list of all persons I had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 8 is the list is compiled in step 4 of all the persons I have harmed, and I pray for the willingness to make amends to them all. Set right the wrong. There's humility again. Step 9, made direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so will injure them or others. So I want to set right the wrong. There's humility again. And it's good to have a sponsor or a spiritual advisor that can help you go through the steps. You can't take the steps alone. And they can talk it over, role play it, say, okay, you got to make an amends. You owe this person $50, etc. Step 10, continue to take personal inventory. And when I was wrong, promptly admit it. That's a personal inventory. You're watching for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. And when I make mistakes, I want to set right the wrong. That's humility, and I promptly admit it. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation, improve my conscious contact with the Creator as I understand Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for me and the power to carry that out. Again, meditation, inspiration, guidance, intuitive thought or decision. Remove the blocks of fear, selfishness, and dishonesty, and you'll start to receive inspiration, guidance. Step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, I try to carry this message to alcoholics and practice these principles in all my affairs. Having a spiritual awakening implies my spirit was asleep. And I want to carry this message to alcoholics and practice these principles in all my affairs. Principles of honesty, purity, unselfishness, and love. The age of miracles is still with us. Our own recovery proves that. Here's a quote from the Big Book. It's nicknamed the Big Book. It's the book Alcoholics Anonymous. It's on page 12. Here we have Ebby Thatcher and Bill Wilson. Bill Wilson is called the co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous. He wrote the book. He was the primary writer of the book Alcoholics Anonymous. And this is his story, chapter 1, Bill's story. Here he writes, my friend, in reference to Ebby Thatcher, suggested what seemed like a novel idea. He says, why don't you choose your own conception of God? And I just want to kind of reemphasize the point of this video is, in religion, there's a certain deity, or certain power, a certain person or principle or something like that in religion that you worship and recognize it's something greater than yourself. And it's like you have a lot of backstory or religious text that you must subscribe to or sign on to practice a religion. Here, you can have a spiritual relationship, meaning that by default, a relationship is talking and listening. In the spiritual terms, it would be prayer and meditation. Prayer is talking, meditation is listening. That is a relationship. And if you have all the, if you're doing all the talking and no listening, that's not a relationship. If you're praying, and no meditation, not listening, that's not a relationship. So what I'm saying to you is, why don't you choose your own conception of a power? On page 55, again, they talk about the great realities deep down inside us. The great reality is deep down inside us. And you can use the substitute the word great reality for awareness. What else is deep down inside us? Our thigh bone, our big toe. Is that the great reality deep down inside us? No, it's a fourth dimension. Great reality is awareness. So you could say to yourself, why don't you choose your own conception of a creator? Or why don't you choose your own conception of the great reality? And that's something you experience. That's not something you take on hearsay or belief from somebody else. It's a relationship that you experience. So he says, my friend suggested what seemed like a novel idea. He said, why don't you choose your own conception of God? And I want to get rid of the word God because that's a loaded word. That's a religious word. And there's a lot of backstory on that word. And I don't want to use that word, me personally. I want to use creator, great reality, awareness, power. That statement hit me hard. Why did that statement hit Bill Wilson hard? Because all he knew was religion, right? That's all he knew. And he rejected religion. He was living on his own brain power. His ego was his higher power. His ego was God. That was the source of everything, selfish and self-centered. Okay? So that statement hit him hard. It's like, wow, I got another option available that will save my life. I don't have to die of alcoholism. It melted the icy intellectual mountain whose shadow I had lived and shivered many years. I stood in the sunlight at last. Intellectual mountain, again, is code for his ego or his brain power, his intellect. And the sunlight of the spirit, or rather, I stood in the sunlight at last. Sunlight would be code for awareness, in my opinion. If you look outside, you see sunlight everywhere. To me, that's a good analogy of awareness. The sunlight's everywhere. Awareness is everywhere. The creator is the source of everything. It was only a matter of being willing to believe. Again, belief is something you're taking on faith. It's like, well, I believe Ebby Thatcher because Ebby Thatcher is sober. He's not drinking. He's an alcoholic just like me. He's a living example that he's sober. That's what convinced Bill Wilson. It's like, here's a man who's an alcoholic who's doomed to die an alcoholic death or be locked up in an asylum. You got to remember, back in the 30s, they didn't have a treatment for alcoholism. Alcoholic insanity was considered a mental illness, and you got locked up in the psych ward. Ebby T. or Ebby Thatcher was this close to going to the psych ward for alcoholic insanity because he was powerless over it. And his mind told him to pick up the first drink. That's the insanity of alcoholism. It was only a matter of being willing to believe in a power greater than myself. Now here, power is pretty neutral. You could say, why don't you choose your own conception of a power greater than yourself, greater than your ego? Nothing more was required to make my beginning. Nothing more was required to make my beginning. So for every alcoholic who wants to get sober and stay sober, nothing more was required to make my beginning. To make your beginning was willing to believe in a power greater than myself. I saw that growth could start from that point, upon a foundation of complete willingness, I might build what I saw in my friend. Would I have it? Of course I would. Here, Bill sees Ebby T as sober and Bill is not. He's circling the drain, dying of alcoholism. It's like I see somebody just like me who's not drinking and sober. I want what he has. What is he doing that I'm not? And that is basically the essence, or what it boils down to, of AA, is one alcoholic helping another because we share the same illness or spiritual malady. So here we are on page 13 in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, chapter 1, Bill's story. Here's Ebby T and Bill W. It says, my friend, this is in reference to Ebby Thatcher, my friend promised. So if you see a promise in a big book, it's anything that gives you hope that you read in the big book, the book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Anything that gives you hope is a promise. My friend promised when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator, that I would have the elements of a way of living which answered all of my problems. Belief in the power of God, plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility. So here we're talking about a new relationship with my Creator. And again, I've said it many times, a relationship by definition is talking and listening. If I have a relationship with other people, I must have talking and listening. That's the elements or components of a relationship. So in spiritual terms, it would be prayer and meditation. So my friend promised when these things were done. Now on page 13, if you read in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, Ebby basically takes Bill Wilson through the 12 steps of AA as it was known then back in the 30s. This is before the book was written. But if you look at it on page 13, you could see the 12 steps of AA. And they describe, going through the 12 steps as it was back when Ebby went to Bill in the hospital. And he says, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator. I would have the elements of a way of living what answered all my problems. Answered all of my problems. It doesn't say answer to my drinking. It doesn't say answer to my alcoholism. It says answer to all my problems. If you got to remember, the Creator, the great reality is a source of everything now. Not your self-will or personality or ego, because in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, it says our problem is we're selfish and self-centered. We're playing God. So belief in a power of God. Now here they swap out Creator for God. And I was listening to some speakers, and they talked about when Bill Wilson wrote the book Alcoholics Anonymous, he didn't like to repeat himself with the same word. But the whole point of this video is to get rid of the word God and substitute it or replace it with the word Creator, great reality, power. And so belief in the power of the Creator. Belief, again, is something that you take on faith. It's like, well, I believe it, but I have no experience. I don't know it. So I believe in the power of God. I believe in the power of the Creator. Now, if Ebby Thatcher is sober and was going to die of alcoholism and he's sober and he's not drinking, There must be a power greater than Ebby that's doing it. Okay? So you can believe in that. Ebby Thatcher is living proof that something more than human power was needed to produce a psychic change. Plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility. Plus enough willingness. Well, it's like willingness is saying, I'm willing to try something new, instead of relying on my ego and saying, hey, I'm the source of everything, I'm playing God. I'm not going to be willing to try something new, experience something. It's like, especially in humility, pride shuts it down. I'm not wrong and I'm not going to fix anything. I am the source of everything. I'm selfish and self-centered. So honesty means right from wrong. And so to be honest, it's like I have a body that cannot safely drink alcohol. You become honest to that fact. That's a fact of life. That's reality. And to say, well, I lost control. I cannot safely drink anymore. It's like you have to admit that powerlessness, that, you'll have a body, you cannot safely drink anymore because of the phenomenon of craving, the physical phenomenon of craving. Once you put it in your body, all you want to do is drink. And what's the insanity of alcoholism is you have a desire to succumb to the desire again to pick up the first drink. And for an alcoholic, one drink is too many and 100's not enough. So here's the quote. My friend promised when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator, that I would have the elements of a way of living which answered all of my problems. Belief in the power of the Creator, plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things were the essential requirements. Simple but not easy. A price had to be paid. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. I must turn to all things to the Father of Light, who presides over us all. Belief in the power of the Creator, plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things were the essential requirements. Requirement is something that you have to have. You have to have this if you want to get sober and stay sober. Simple but not easy. A price had to be paid. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. Again, this is in reference to we had to quit playing God or quit playing the Creator, because the Creator is the source of everything, not my ego. My ego is selfish and self-centered, and that's self-will or personality. So the destruction of self-centeredness, and replace that with Creator-centeredness. The Creator is everything. The Creator is source of everything, not my ego. I must turn to all things to the Father of Light. Now here, Father of Light in Bill's story with Bill Wilson, that's his power or great reality. I want to use Creator. Father implies male. I don't believe the Creator is male or female. I believe the Creator is awareness, and He created me. That's how simple I keep it. Who presides over us all. And that, to me, presides over us all means God is, the Creator is everything. Awareness is everywhere. That life force, and so to establish and maintain the new order of things were the essential requirements. Simple but not easy. A price had to be paid. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. I must turn to all things to the Father of Light, who presides over us all. And again, I don't think the Creator is male or female, so I'm not going to use that. I use creator, great reality, power. And so here, destruction of self-centeredness. What is the bondage of self? Again, it's selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. That's self-centeredness. That's running on personality, self-will, ego, whatever you want to call it, thinking. And once you go into meditation and you have gaps between your thinking and you have this awareness, that's who you really are. That's your spiritual awareness. That's your spiritual awakening. That's your spiritual experience. You certainly, the awareness of you is there, and a lot of people identify with thinking as who you are. And the gaps between your thinking demonstrate that that's who you really are, awareness.